There is a town upstate, 2 days' journey to the north in the Hudson Highlands. It is a place called Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow is Tim Burton at his best. Fight me. That's it. That's the intro. No, hey there, boys and girls. I'm coming in swinging, saying that this is peak Tim Burton. Right off the rip.
Yeah, I'm not... Well, wait a minute. This is a sideways start to this. I didn't expect this. So peak Tim Burton. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it.
I'll say it's... Here's what I'll say.
I mean, I like Batman Returns better
dig
than
this,
movie,
dig this.
But, okay.
I'll say it's peak Tim Burton, but not peak Danny Elfman. You see what I mean there? You see what I'm doing there?
I do.
Like, sing Sleepy Hollow songs.
No. I
Like,
can't.
you can't. It's just...
It's just like a drone.
You know, it's not, was
Well.
it Fireside Dance or whatever from Edward Scissorhands. It's
Right.
It's not da-da-da-da from fucking Batman or Beetlejuice, anything like that.
I'm with you.
It's great. It's a great soundtrack. I really like it. And it's one of like the first songs that come up with my Halloween playlist.
Sure.
Like I really like it, but it's not like the most memorable thing from the film. It works. In fact, I have a huge list of notes for me. There's actually one like musical cue in the movie that I caught this time listening to it with some like good headphones that I never heard before, and I was like, oh, this makes this scene a lot creepier. But we'll get to that later. But everyone knows Sleepy Hollow, Tim Burton, Sleepy Hollow, 1999. If you haven't seen it, what the hell are you doing listening to this?
So I feel like this is movie 2 in our cycle of Halloween's coming. No one's sure if Halloween's going to be like what it is, and we need the atmosphere.
We have the atmosphere because I have Spireside's Candle, the Headless Horseman Rides lit, which basically is just a basic pumpkin singing candle. It's not like it's a good candle.
Totally fine.
It's a good candle. They had some other ones that I thought could have been better. Creepy Castle grew on me, but Headless Horseman one is probably my favorite. We had one more. The library one.
Yeah, that was terrible.
That one was weird.
It grew on you, though.
I did end up burning the whole thing. Well, let me tell you something. I didn't tell Alex this, but I burnt through the Ghost Castle one because I accidentally left it burning. I went to go get coffee in the morning, and I was like, the house smells really great. And then I looked, and it was at like the bottom, and I went, took it out. So, but we have the Headless
Horseman. You're haunted with guilt. So
exactly.
I have a trivia question for you. Can we start this with
I would love to start with a trivia question. Hopefully I can answer.
What do Frankenstein,
Windmill,
Patrick Ewing, Tom Cruise, and George Washington have in common?
One more time and I'm going to visualize.
What do Frankenstein,
Frankenstein,
Patrick Ewing, Tom Cruise, and George Washington have in common?
Bolts in their neck. I don't know.
Tom Cruise?
Another
conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So this blows my mind. They have Washington Irving in common. So Washington Irving wrote Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Mm-hmm. And this guy is so much more fascinating than anyone really knows unless you've like done some research on him somehow, because this guy, so he's known as the first American man of letters. This guy was born at the same time as he's the last of 11 children. Almost all of his siblings were born before the American Revolution. Right?
Wow.
So he is literally the first, he's the first literary person of esteem for America could claim, right? So he's this guy who sort of comes out of nowhere, but he does these amazing things. So you ready for this? Let me give you a little background on Washington Irving. He had an affair with Mary Shelley.
No way.
Of Frankenstein fame, right?
Wow.
He was at George Washington's inauguration, met him when he was 6 years old, right? So to market himself, when he became a writer, he was the first person to think of writing under a fake name and then creating a mystery about it. So he invented a guy named Dietrich Knickerbocker, And he was like, who is Dietrich Knickerbocker? Who is
I
this
feel like
guy?
they loved that word back in the Knickerbocker.
No, he invented it.
He invented it?
He invented it. So he's like, who is Dietrich?
What?
He's like, who is Dietrich Knickerbocker? So this guy was this historian, and he had these mysterious papers. It was the way Lovecraft writes. Like, I found this manuscript. Like, I didn't write this. I found this ancient manuscript and buried in a
Right.
thing, whatever. Right. So everyone was like, who is this Knickerbocker guy? Right. So that's why the New York Knicks are called the Knickerbockers, because Washington Irving invented Knickerbockers.
What?
He became the most famous New York-based literary character of his time. Right.
Wow.
So he has that cover. So that's where Patrick Ewing comes from. That's where Frankenstein comes from, right? Now watch this. So then the Who Is kind of thing. Christopher McQuarrie wrote Usual Suspects. So the Who Is Kaiser Sose. I'm like trying to figure out like what is this guy? What else did he do? He wrote Mission Impossibles. So like Tom Cruise. This marketing thing of Who Is was invented with Washington Irving and then goes all the way to Usual Suspect, like Who Is Kaiser Sose. So like Washington Irving has invented like the mystery marketing. He's invented the word Knickerbocker. He's dating Mary Shelley. He's hanging out with George Washington when he's 6 years old. Like, it's absolutely nuts how much stuff this guy did, right? So he's an incredible writer. And I remember, we had this discussion once about like Exorcist 3 possibly being the best horror movie ever directed by a horror novelist, right? So there's a subgenre of horror movies which is basically classical literature horror movies. Now
Right.
the full-blown novel size ones like Frankenstein, Dracula, we all know those are great movies, right? But horror short stories are a really special genre. When you go and you look at like the horror short story, especially the classics, right? Sleepy Hollow might be the best horror movie ever made from a horror short story. Like, I was going through other movies that were based on classic horror short stories, and I don't know if there's one better than Sleepy Hollow. Like, this is like old traditional American storytelling kind of at its finest. So, the fact that it's not surprising to me that this movie has mad atmosphere and like really that mythological punch of like, you feel like you're in a world and you're with people with this like timeless storytelling. But when I was researching the guy behind it, I'm like, this guy was like a rock star of his time. Who knew? Like, the guy who created Ichabod Crane was like the James Bond of writers. Like, no idea. So kind of mind blowing. Sleepy Hollow, by the way, the movie is purposely not called Legend of Sleepy Hollow, just Sleepy Hollow, because it is not like the story. If you read
He's
the
a
story,
math teacher. Isn't he like a teacher or something?
yeah, he's
like
a
that?
teacher, but like in the story, it's all spoilers. In the story, it's all a prank done by I forget who plays the guy, and I'll look it up. But like, it's all a prank on Ichabod Crane because they're both vying for the girl that Christina Ricci is playing in this. And he basically thinks Ichabod Crane is a threat, so he scares him out of town. And Ichabod Crane just leaves and goes marries a girl in New York. That's it. That's the end of the story.
What?
Like, it's a prank. There's nothing supernatural. And then nothing happens. He just leaves Terrytown, which is where it's set, and then just goes away. And then the guy gets the Christina Ricci character, and Ichabod Crane gets some widow in New York, and that's it. So like, the
This
movie,
movie had a glow up.
right? Movie changes a lot of things from the story, which is why it's not called Legend of Sleepy Hollow, it's just Sleepy Hollow.
Well, I think the guy who wrote this, I wrote his name down, but for some reason, when I went to write the last name, I was like, why don't I write as terribly as possible so I can't pronounce it on the show? Andrew Kevin Walker.
Well, we've talked about him before.
I think he did 7.
Yeah.
And Alex met him, my fiance, at Austin Film Festival when she had a script selected. And apparently, he goes to Eating Los Feliz. I hope we can get him on the show.
I bet you're right.
I say that every time, and I wonder if people who listen go, I wonder if he can get those people on the show. So now, you know why I say
Well, it's
that?
a
Because
bet.
now I got to do it.
Now you gotta do it.
Now I got to do
Now
it.
you gotta do it.
No, this movie definitely had a glow. And I just finished rewatching it, and like, this technically was like the first film that I've watched to kick off like the Halloween season, spooky
Perfect
season.
choice.
And you know what's funny? I was like, because the Lakers game were on, and we're big Lakers fans, and I was like, I'll have the Lakers game on mute and then watch this. And I thought to myself, I'll probably listen to it and keep my eye on the game
Sure.
more. I didn't tune into the game until there was like 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter because I just got so sucked. Like, there's a reason like why I keep the Headless Horseman statue up 24/7. Like just like this movie is magical and we just watched Jurassic Park. Like, I got a sound bar, and by the way, before we leave, I got to show you the satellite speakers in the back. You just got to hear a trailer. But we just watched Jurassic Park, and when we were talking about it afterwards, we were like, it felt like a movie where everyone was on their A game.
Yep.
This movie feels the exact same fucking way. It feels like everyone's LeBron in his prime showing up to set, and they know exactly what they need to do, how they're going to do it, and how they're going to execute it. And
you forget, like, the little... I mean, I forgot Christopher Lee's in here. I forgot Martin Landau starts this out. One of my favorite actors. I can't... Like, and Miranda Richardson, holy shit. She was a revelation to me. She's the villain, basically, right? Like, amazing.
Dumbledore.
There's a couple of Harry Potter alums.
In Alfred from Batman in there with his little wonky eye.
Totally.
Everyone in there is so good. In fact, there's little touches that I didn't realize... like special effects that still are VFX. Is it VFX? I don't know, because it's 1999. It's that weird era where you don't know if it's. But I think the opening titles. There's this one thing that when it does Johnny Depp's name, it's over the road's on the left side, and then his name is like sort of over the river. And what I love, there's little touches where like his name is above the river, and then the name's reflected in the river below. Yep. And it's just like little things like that. Like even the intro's spooky. Like there's so much in this movie that holds up. Like I was expecting there to be some things that didn't age well, because I watched this movie.
There are a couple,
but even the stuff that
it's very white. That's I understand it has to be, but like it's kind of glossing over some stuff, but it's fine. It's fine. It's an amazing movie, and it's like you said, everyone's on their A game. It's just I think the plot is a little busy. I could have done a little less with. Oh no, this is actually who's doing it over here, and this girl who snapped the twig is actually from this house, and she lives over here, and this is like us. I could have done with a little more streamlined.
It's so crazy because I remember up until this rewatch bumping on that same stuff and being like, yeah, it's a little long. But this time I had no problems with it.
Well, it's not that it's long. I think that the movie's trying to do a little too much in terms of plot, because Sleepy Hollow is so streamlined. The story is so streamlined that I think he knew he had to flesh it out and add some stuff.
Right.
But, I think he went a little... And some of the changes, like, obviously, it's better to have him as a detective than a teacher. And obviously, it's better to have him inventing his own instruments and being hilariously squeamish in the sight of blood and all that stuff is all...
I wanted to do a count of how many times people faint in the movies. Everyone's fainting.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
But, I mean, here's the thing. I still contend to this day that this movie contains if not one of the most underrated quote-unquote villains in all of horror movies. Christopher Walken nails this performance, and Tim Burton nails the way he shoots him.
Dude.
Incredible.
Ain't that the truth? Rewatching this, I was like, the Headless Horseman, to me, in this film, like if you can really buy into the world and imagine being there, I think he's scarier than all the top slashers, because he's just so ferocious. And even his fighting style, like normally in horror movies, the horror scares are great, the action scenes kind of suck.
Right.
The action scenes in this movie,
this felt like Blade.
Yes, it really did. When he's fighting Ichabod and the guy who's fighting him for Christina Ricci's love.
Right.
When they're fighting, he like pulls out those two little scythes, and then Johnny Depp or Ichabod's like, I gotta help him. The way he's fighting, and it's just he's so confident. I mean, you can't see his face, you don't know how confident it is, but you can feel
you can feel it from the walk and the body language and the moves for sure. Like literally that last shot when he's walking to go get Christina Ricci and Johnny Depp's trying to figure out how to throw him his head, and he just walks out of the mist. He walks like an unstoppable force. I have never seen anyone walk more like put a wall in front of me, it won't matter. I'm gonna walk right through it.
There's a move I didn't realize in the fight scene I was just mentioning. The guy takes the knife and throws it, and it goes into his back. I didn't realize the horseman turns around, pulls it through him, and then throws it back.
Incredible.
I was like, that's the sickest fucking move. It is so cool.
And such contempt for like you have no chance.
Well, I thought the one thing that stood out to me, like, I think it's probably like one of like the scariest like movie monster moves in the world is when he goes and he kills that family and the little boys under the floor. Right when he walks out, that twist he does where he's like, "There's one more fucker in here that I gotta go get." I was sitting there watching it going, I don't think I've ever been like that frightened of Jason, that frightened of Freddy, that frightened of Mike. Like they have very, very, very scary moments because they're legends, they're icons.
Sure.
But even like so he makes that turn, and then when he goes to hack the floor, he does it with this like because they talk about the Hessian or the Hessen, however they say it in the film.
Yep.
He just had this ferocious like this like he sharpens his teeth like he's like that mean, and like the fact that you don't see this guy's face and it's just pure body movement and you get that is incredible.
Yep, totally. And not to mention the horse, the atmosphere around how he shot, all of that stuff is whatever. The fact that nature itself seems to not even know what to do with him, like with his presence. Like he shows up and the trees act weird and the leaves blow around like
the fire blows up that one guy's
like
house.
Nature, like the earth itself doesn't know what to do with this character. He's puzzling. Like it's like he's confusing, but he's not confused. Like he's like straight purpose, like, you know, whatever is just phenomenal. But just and the little, you forget how good Christopher Walken is with nonverbal acting and just like the without even talking. Just
all he does is he goes. But what's funny is when he grunts, it sounds like Christopher Walken, which is like he's like one of my favorite actors. Like I just when he grunts. It's just weird to hear him grunt. And you're like, that's a Christopher Walken grunt.
Right.
Most of the other time, it's just people going. Ugh.
And just the Headless Horseman itself. Forget Christopher Walken. Is just the visual of that and the idea of that is just the concept of that. Plus throwing around pumpkins, which is part of why we're doing.
And
this.
his horse's name being Daredevil.
Right. And the blood tree. Oh my God.
The blood tree is great.
Like disgusting and amazing. So like that's the thing. But I just want to talk for a second about the fact that he hits all the marks. That character is not only like monstrous and evil and powerful and like whatever, but also not like there's a very sympathetic King Kong almost element to this, because remember he's being manipulated himself, right? He's being made to do things that he doesn't want to do, like whatever, which is exactly the kind of thing like a Frankenstein or a King Kong situation where Frankenstein didn't ask to be sewn together and brought into like a world of pain, and King Kong didn't be asked to be exported to New York. Like these are like you've got someone but he is ruthless and evil and sharpens his teeth and is a warrior and all that stuff too. Like so he has all the classic like. You could imagine if it had become a franchise and there had been 5 Sleepy Hollows, that by the end of it, it would have been a Godzilla situation where he would be totally the hero of the cycle by like movie 4.
I never watched the Sleepy Hollow TV show.
I haven't either.
Like, I just don't give a shit. And like their concept was the Headless Horseman was one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse,
right?
Which is a cool concept,
totally.
But then they got rid of the actress, and it was like some like real racist shit, and so I'm like, I'm never gonna watch that show.
I didn't know any of that.
Well, yeah, because I was like, who cares? Because I forget what happened. They both got sick. And then they treated the dude actor like gold, and then her like shit, and then fans got mad, and I was like, well, I'm glad I never got into the show because now I have nothing to be mad about.
I don't even have to watch.
But yeah, what's great about I forgot how good of a detective movie this is. Like like the suspense, the whodunit of it all, and like talking about the Headless Horseman. Like normally in a movie, like first of all, like. This has such a good body count too. I forgot how many people would just get fucked up. But in a horror film like this, whenever you start figuring out who the monster is, it's usually pretty weak sauce. Right. But the more they found out, like I absolutely love the part where Ichabod goes, he's not after you. Yep. There's something like really fascinating about that, because normally it's just if you get in their way, they're going to hack and slash you. But the fact that this is calculated and you now know that someone's in control of this is a really cool concept. Like it's unique to the story, and it's definitely the sauce, the legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Right. Totally. And it's also, you know, there's a tragedy implicit in the idea of being killed by someone who's being directed to do it, but it's like Silver Surfer kind of situation, right? So like it's worse to know that if you could have just given him back his head, he wouldn't have killed you, but you didn't even know that was a thing. So you're gonna die almost by mistake or by confusion or whatever. But I will never forget like the scene where he's kept out of the church, right, where they have the border and all that. Like the first time I saw that, and now on the rewatch, I was like, this is one of the best staged scenes I've ever seen.
It's funny because like
mainstream horror movie.
It's funny because the church battle is like, I think I have like 3 songs, like the main theme, something else, and then the church battle on my Halloween playlist, because that is just such a fucking done scene.
Incredible. I miss Tim Burton. I wish he still
that's what I'm saying.
Existed.
That's what I'm saying. We got to make it our mission. We got to make it our mission to get a hold of Tim Burton and be like, just do a horror movie.
I mean, maybe, I don't know.
We talked about this before on the show. Like, maybe he's over it and it's not his thing, in which we would understand.
Right.
But I think everyone can be persuaded. I really do. And I just watched Danny Elfman's masterclass. I'm not a composer.
Right.
It was fucking fascinating. So. He's sharp as a whip. He's got it till the day he dies. We still got
the fastball.
We got him. Oh. We just got to get Tim Burton. Black and white pinstripes haven't gone nowhere.
No. And he's surprised. Tim Burton surprises me. Batman Returns was a lot darker than I expected going into a movie with Danny DeVito as the Penguin in it. Right. I expected a comedy, basically. And then Sweeney Todd is a bloodbath. I had no idea going into that. I never even seen it.
Yeah, we all watched it together.
You introduced me to it, and I was like, this movie is sick, right? So like, and now Sleepy Hollow, I was listening to a podcast. I wish I could remember the name, but it was a podcast about book adaptations that into movies, right? So
that sounds cool.
They cover any movie that came from a book or whatever, and they you could tell they're like literary types, and they basically watch like the Notebook kind of like movies or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't even get through this one. They were like, "This movie is disgusting," and I'm like, "Hell yeah!"
The gore holds up. Like they're in that fight on the little bridge when he has I think he has like the 2 axes or whatever, and he slices the guy and he spins around. A lot of bodies, decapitated parts spinning.
A lot of gore.
Holds up. You know what I didn't realize, and so for some reason, like there's very obvious things that just I don't put 2 and 2 together sometimes, but I never realized that his horse didn't die.
No.
So his horse is like sad as fuck at his grave, and that broke my heart. I was like, holy shit, his horse, like Daredevil has nowhere else to go. Yep. But I kind of like that he stuck with him.
Yeah, totally. I like it too.
He must have passed away and then like found the Headless Horseman in hell or purgatory or whatever, and he was like, yo, this is so great. What's up, man? Let's go fuck shit up. Let's have a witch control us and kill, terrorize the town.
Yes.
We got to talk about Ichabod. He is probably my favorite horror hero of all time.
Yes.
Like, I've always resonated with Ichabod Crane because he's a fucking coward.
Yeah.
He's scared of everything. I hate, like one of our, in our bathroom, we have one of those, like, motion sensor air thing, when it walks in and starts, sucking the air water. I need a cleaner or something like that, because when I walk in there, it makes this hissing noise. Mm-hmm. Every time I walk in there, it scares the shit out of me. I almost pass out. So that's the level of scaredy cat that I'm working with. But like, I love.
But he pushes through. Like he's trying to get it done.
And you know what it reminds me of is there's that really cringy line in one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets where the nun asks the detective, "Do you believe in God?" And he goes, "I believe in science." And you're like, "Okay, Neil Tyson." Like,
right.
And Ichabod sort of has that, where like everything has to have a reason or a meaning or some sort of tangible thing that he can do. And then Christina Ricci gives him that book of spells and all that other stuff. Mm-hmm. And what I love about him is he doesn't. He thinks it's weird, and he doesn't want to believe it because he's a man of science and all that shit. But he doesn't push it to the side. He's like, well, maybe, and like he holds on to the book.
Well, and and it's always tricky doing something like this, right? But it seems obvious, and it seems like Tim Burton kind of invites us to do this. Unlike a lot of directors, David Lynch would hate this, but Edward Scissorhands is definitely a metaphor, right? There's a metaphor going on in there, right? So rewatching this, it really jumped out to me and occurred to me that Ichabod Crane is sort of an analogy for the type of film director Tim Burton is, right? So like when you're someone who's, maladjusted and maybe not socially, gifted and like whatever, Although, everyone that has ever worked with Tim Burton swears by him and is loyal to him. So he's obviously great interpersonally, like, in the process of this, right?
Right.
But you can tell that he's an unusual guy, right? So,
Right.
so how did he get around it? How did he get around it? Well, technology. He invented shit. Like, he invented his he invented a genre.
Yeah.
He invented his characters,
His
and he
style.
also manually figured out how to draw it, get it across in a way that a mass audience would resonate with it, like, those
Right,
things.
right.
And Ichabod Crane can't stand the sight of blood, like Tim Burton probably can't stand the sight of being at a dinner party, like tired of people.
Right.
But he figured out a way to make it work. He figured out a way around it by his own ingenuity, by basically self-invention, right? And I feel like this, whatever self-invention Tim Burton has, is buried there in Ichabod Crane. He's becoming a success through self-invention, even though it's in an area where it shouldn't work, because a detective who's scared of blood shouldn't be a success.
Right.
Right, in life. But he's an amazing success. He solves a mystery that no one else would have solved. And Tim Burton makes movies that no one else would have made through self-invention, right?
Yeah.
So it feels like it lines up pretty amazingly. And when you have that kind of like kernel buried in there, where the director, the artist knows that they're doing that maybe they don't even consciously know, but like he has to be somewhere. Tim Burton just has to understand that character so well that he can direct the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the thing that like really stuck out with me with Ichabod is like, whenever like I'm stressing out about something, Alex always says like, well, what if you just surrendered to like what's happening? Like
Right.
just surrender and go with the flow.
Right.
And it ends up working because like you do surrender, but you still hold on to like who you are, and like you don't totally surrender. Like you just kind of go with the flow, but you're still who you are. And I noticed that with Ichabod, like he just kept being like, okay, this is weird, but I'm gonna have to do it, and I'm gonna have to do it. He took the book, and then luckily at the end he flipped to the page after seeing the thing underneath his bed and the thing of the church, thinking it was some curse. He finds out it's a protection for his loved ones.
Yep.
So he surrenders to the idea of the weird spiritual stuff, but he holds on to the detective science thing when he notices the cut on the body doesn't really match the other hand. So like he surrenders to it, but he's still who he is. And being able to just open yourself up to this weird stuff helps you grow as a person, because he's a completely different person at the end.
Totally.
I mean, he's still quirky and weird, but
Sure.
like he's seen some shit.
Yep. Totally.
He's seen some shit. And I think having a vulnerable hero like that, like you don't get that in a lot of horror movies. It's usually, some sort of badass
I'm here
person.
to chew bubblegum, kick some ass is what you usually get from the hero in a horror movie.
You get something like that, and that's fun, and it's cool to have like the fun adrenaline stuff to like go in there and just kick some ass.
Right, but it's totally nice to have a different,
It's refreshing, and I think that's why I like the movie so much, is because like we've all been fucking frightened,
Right.
and you can either let it freak the fuck out of you and not do anything, or you can just like cowboy up and like see what happens.
Right.
And when you get to see that, like it's just it's nice.
And also, it's set in, so it's harder in a character study. Like there's a weird movie called Locke. It's Tom Hardy, and it's basically all set in a car, right? He's driving, and you're basically just on him, right? It's like Ryan Reynolds buried. Like an actor can either pull that off or not. But when you're all focused on a character, and I think it would have been too much to focus that much on Ichabod Crane. But when you put it in one of the most beautiful horror movies ever made, with some of the best art that's ever been put on a screen, at least for that
Everything
era,
looks so
and the atmosphere
good.
or whatever. So it's such a rich like tapestry to have that element in. Then it works so well, because you don't have to dwell on what's going on with him, but you can just pick it up, right? So like I think it's just the perfect blend of
The whole cast.
Plus, it's just well acted, and it's. I think in terms of acting in this movie, I think the best. Christopher Walken's my favorite performance in there, but it's hard to give him like the gold medal for like no dialogue performance or whatever. I think Christina Ricci's next. I think she's the next best
really
performance in this movie, and then Johnny Depp and Miranda Richardson I have tied, and then like everyone's good, right? But like,
I would throw. I mean, everyone's so good. It's hard. What sucks is like they got that one child porn guy in there.
Oh yeah, Jeffrey Jones. Or whatever.
Jeffrey Jones. So it's like it's always hard to like look at that and be like, ugh, you're kind of a fucking creep. But I got to get into some movie details. Like there's some shit I didn't realize how many close-ups are in this movie. Like they do close-ups of almost everything in Sleepy Hollow.
Interesting.
It's always, I mean, the movie like begins with a close-up of them writing the letter.
That's true.
And I just think it's a really cool, interesting thing that like they decided to focus on a shit ton of details in a detective movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because it kind of puts you in the seat of like you're the detective. You get to look at the clues and the stuff that Ichabod's looking at.
That's weird. I feel like they did more of that in this than they did in From Hell, where he was also playing a detective.
Right.
Who catches Jack the Ripper, but I don't remember many close-ups of.
There's close-ups of everything. When Jeffrey Jones is like, the only book you're going to need is this. And he goes, and it's the Holy Bible. Close-up of the Holy Bible.
Yeah.
Everything you get a close-up of. Close-up of the cuts in the hands.
Yeah.
Close-ups of like, I mean, you name it. There's probably a close-up of it.
Wow. Good.
And I think it's a really interesting thing.
That is.
And I think that helps Ichabod's character. Like, you get to be like, what are the... Because like when you watch a detective movie and they hold a magnifying glass, I always go, what the fuck are they looking at?
Right.
And this movie's like, well
here you go.
here it is.
Wow.
We're gonna close up of the abdomen where
Good
the
point.
girl got rid of her baby.
I got to rewatch this just with that in mind. That's really...
Dude, if you rewatch it with the minds, anyone listening to
really
this,
interesting.
rewatch it with knowing that you're gonna get like 150 close.
really-
I would love to see the shot list of Sleepy Hollow, and it's just
crazy.
see you down the strip. Oh, you know what? I did do a time thing of when people get murdered. People get murdered a lot in this movie.
Yes,
So
they
like, I think what's great about this is it's just a classic, great horror movie. But like, I think it fits the niche of slasher films. Like, check this out. You get a kill like 3 minutes in, right? You get 2 bodies,
Yep.
right? And then next, you get a kill at 20 minutes 41 seconds, 38:52, 58. It just boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom.
It's a slasher movie.
Death. This is a slasher film. Tim Burton did a slasher.
I'll be damned. Well, he's done too, because Sweeney Todd's done.
Sweeney Todd is definitely a fucking slasher. But what the other thing that I picked up on at this time was this movie sort of did like the werewolf who done it type thing.
Right.
Like when Ichabod first walks in, all like the boys club. I like to call them the boys club because that's
Yep.
exactly what it is.
Yes.
Like they all went from like partying to having a good time, and then when they're alone, they just like they switch like a light. They went from like scaredy cats to like, by the way, there's this fucking thing. We don't know who's gonna do it. But the movie does such a good job at building suspension, because when you first watch this movie, you don't know that it's a witch who has his skull
Of
who's
course not.
doing it.
Right.
Like that's the detective part. So like you do have,
Especially if you read the story.
especially
There's no rich, and you're like, what the hell's happening?
you're completely lost.
Right, exactly.
You're lost when Ichabod's in New York looking at a floating dead body.
Totally.
But I love the suspicion of, because they're all slime balls.
Yes.
They all have something weird going on with them, some sort of dirty secret, and so like
Yeah.
they know that none of them did it, but they think one of them did it.
Yep.
And I love that
I love
level
that
of
too.
suspense.
I love that it did the there's something rotten behind the facade of suburbia thing.
Yeah.
But like in 1790, right? Like David Lynch did it in Blue Velvet, but Sleepy Hollow was like, this shit started with this country. This country never not had this, like, which was kind of
No. This whole fucking movie is just so good. I'm so glad I rewatched it. Like,
So I've never done this before on this podcast. I discovered something in this movie that I don't know the meaning of. Don't even have a guess at it. But I'm
really?
just going to throw it out
Normally
there.
you know like
Right.
most of the stuff, and I
Well-
come to you for that.
Well, it's not even not even knowing, but I can at least take an educated guess or be like, I believe this, or stake a ground or whatever. I'm just going to make an observation, and then anyone that's listening to this, they can flesh it out. Please hit me back with it, because it'll drive me crazy, but I can't. There is something really strange going on in this movie with the concepts of bent and straight. I know it means
Fill
something.
me in.
I know it means something, and I
What do you-
can't-
what do you mean,
I
though,
can't
by,
figure
like,
out what it
bent
means.
versus straight?
So picture the tree,
Oh, I see where you're going. I see.
right? And now, one of the very last shots of this freaking movie is Miranda Richardson gets pulled into the tree, right? And all you see is her hand, and the last thing you see with her hand is her finger, and her finger is straight, pointing, and then it just curls. And that's it. That's
You know
the
what's
last
weird?
shot.
That doesn't that Weird Hill thing do
The
that in
hill,
Nightmare Before
right?
Christmas? Like when Jack Skellington's it's curling and it
Yes,
straightens out.
yes, and he does those curls like so, and then like with the fences and the iconography at the church, and then like the instruments that he's doing are all these like straight angle like things, but then everything in the town is crooked, and he's trying to make things straight, and it's just everywhere
I see where you're going with
everywhere I looked at the twig, like everywhere I looked, it was this visual like contrast between things that were like straight lined and crooked were everywhere all the time.
Right.
And I could not figure out, is this an accident?
Well, because like
Is
you know,
it
it's Tim Burton. He likes the black and white stripey type stuff.
Totally.
But that's really interesting. Like, but like I've always known that to be like that's just him. But,
Right,
like, what
right.
does that fucking mean?
And then the tree is, first of all, this tree, this is the only tree I've ever seen. I mean, it's fucking trees. Like, trees have been in movies since movies have been
this
movies.
tree is more popular than the tree in A Monster Calls, and that tree has fucking lines.
Right, but this tree, you see it one. I hadn't seen Sleepy Hollow when I met you, right? Like, I didn't take Tim Burton seriously in the horror aspect at all. I was basically a Tim Burton fan of Beetlejuice, Batman Returns. I had never seen Sweeney Todd, didn't really watch Sleepy Hollow, and I thought of Sleepy Hollow as basically like a horrored up Titanic. I thought I was going to in for Jack and Rose. That's what I thought from afar, right? So I didn't really take it seriously from that, but like so there's so much more of that going on, more going on than I realized there, but I don't know what the hell what he was doing or why he's doing it there, but for some reason, and Christopher Walken, the way he plays the Headless Horseman this guy doesn't have a head, but he's got better posture than I do.
Right.
He is always like ramrod straight, like, you know, like in his posture.
Even it's funny because when he was fighting, I was like, he has some finesse.
Right.
Like it's this, like, it's just like Olympian level, like,
Yes.
but like it's not like a Wolverine, like I imagine hunched over, like real barbaric.
Totally.
Him, it's like very like straight up, like I'm about to whoop that ass.
Yep. Yeah, totally. But once I had not seen this movie, but I saw a shot of the Sleepy Hollow tree in passing, and I could have sketched it like a sketch artist, like at a crime scene. I would have gotten it exactly right. This tree is unforgettable when you see it, right?
Yeah.
But
you can draw it. Like I did it in my head just now. I was like, okay, so you got like this, and then you got this big ass, trunk at the bottom.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. But like the tree is shorter than it should be because it's bent. The Headless Horseman's shorter than he should be because he's missing a head. Right. Like there's something going on with this kind of thing. And maybe it's just all accidental in terms of like he's just so good visually. But he put so much emphasis on that last shot of Miranda Richardson's hand and then the last shot of the tree. And I was like, what is going on here with this bent straight, like whatever. So if anyone can figure out what the hell that means, hit us up because I don't know what it means, but it was everywhere in this movie.
That's really interesting. He's such a good director. We're gonna. I swear to God, if it's my life's mission to get Tim Burton to do, what was the budget for this? I bet if he did a $30 million horror film, because what was the like M. Night Shyamalan? He did that one movie for like no money, and then it ended up being great.
Yeah,
I feel like that's what Tim Burton's got to do. Give him $40 million.
Sure.
Make a horror movie. Make it happen. Maybe hire this writer again,
Yeah.
which is what I want to get to. This movie is really fucking funny.
Yes.
There is a lot of comedic stuff in this movie that I did, like, because we had Tommy McLaughlin on, and we asked him about horror and putting in jokes and comedy mixed in with horror, and it adds a lot of likability to characters, and I think that holds true in Sleepy Hollow. But the comedy in this is really funny. Like,
but he had to put comedy in there. That era is legendary for that. Like The Witch, hilarious.
The Witch is hilarious, knee slapper.
No, it's amazing he put comedy in this time period because it doesn't fit, but he made it fit. It's
and with like the amount of gore that it has, and like the score is like you wouldn't imagine if you listen to Sleepy Hollow score, you're not like, oh, I'm thinking of all the funny parts of Sleepy Hollow. You're thinking of people getting dismembered and fog and pumpkins and other shit. But there was like the one line when Ichabod sees the Headless Horseman for the first time kill the one big guy, and his head rolls him into his crotch, and then he wakes up, and then he wakes up, and Dumbledore, he's like, he's real, and I keep calling him Dumbledore. I'm going to call him that the rest of the episode. He just goes, yeah, we told you, and he goes, no, he's real, and he goes, yes, we told you. Like, you don't, like, we weren't fucking with you.
Know.
We weren't lying. And then the other part that made me laugh is when they go into who you find out's the sister of the witch sisters cave, which is like, what's funny is you just mentioned the witch, because I don't think you get to see. Oh, I guess you do see the inside of the witch's like little cabin because like they
little bit.
grind up the baby, but like it's a lot of close-ups of them dismembering the baby. But like in my head, I was like, I bet that's what the house looks like in the Witch,
Yes.
in Sleepy Hollow. Like it just the set. Whoever did the set design, like my God, it's so good.
I know.
But anyways, Johnny Depp walks in and they're talking about something. And he goes, witch.
Yep.
Like no, he's like trying to tell, like I'm not saying you're a witch. I'm saying witch.
Yep.
In the sense, and the way he's just tripping on it over the word witch is like really funny. And it's not like laugh out loud comedic moments.
No,
but,
I mean, it almost ends on a laugh because he passes out after that. So something goes in the tree.
oh yeah,
He just falls over. Like, I mean, it's hilarious.
everyone's passing out. The witch passes out on him after she freaks out drinking that bat juice or whatever it is. The other thing I wanted to point out that this whole movie is a landlord issue. Am I wrong?
No.
This whole movie is because
you're
that
absolutely
one
right.
the landlord, Dumbledore,
Yes.
the famous landlord,
Famous landlord Dumbledore.
Dumbledore. What's funny is I didn't even catch in the beginning. They talk about how he's like, how'd you get money? I was lucky, and they're like, well, he's a farmer and a landlord, and I was like, it's kind of cool that like they have it on the beginning and the end, and I just noticed it this time watching. But this whole movie this is an eviction movie.
Yep. Yeah, go figure.
And
Wow.
we're at the time now where people are,
Yeah,
you know,
I
so
mean,
we could have a
back
headless
to relevance.
Yeah, exactly.
Back to being relevant.
All it takes is one disgruntled person.
Well, you know what's crazy is Tarrytown still exists. This is the city that the story is set in, and they in 1999 when this movie came out, they renamed the place adjacent to Tarrytown in New York. They renamed it Sleepy Hollow, so it's known as Sleepy Hollow now. It's officially been renamed. right?
Really?
And when you go visit Tarrytown, it looks like it's in 1790. Like
No
that
way.
city has not changed. You got to go visit this place before you got. You got to Google image like Tarrytown. It looks like this. You can picture it. Like still,
Oh my
like
God.
it is so unchanged. Like which is amazing. So, you know and. I mean, like you were saying, this came from the era when, I don't know, there were like 12 jobs. 12 kinds of jobs in the world.
Baker,
there was blacksmith,
farmer.
butcher, Hessian, witch. There was like, we're a lot of landlord. There were a lot of jobs. So it really has that feel, which is interesting.
I'll have to check it out. The witch scene has the one music cue I was talking about.
Yeah, what is the cue?
So when the jump scare happens and she jumps on him, the music is a completely different sounding music from anywhere else in the movie. And have you ever heard, I don't know who the composer is, but I think the song is called like Dance Macabre.
Yes, I know that.
It's a really fucking scary song. And there was
there's
a beer commercial back like 2 years ago that had it in its commercial, and I was pissed.
That's like on every Halloween.
It's
classical mix.
It's
like
that song that's scary. It's that song. It's a jump scare. It's quiet. Then all of a sudden that violin goes dun, 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 dun. And then the rest of the song's like kind of weird. The beginning is I still can't listen to it. Like when I play it on YouTube sometimes, I'm like, oh, I want to give it a listen. Like my heart starts going, and then it happens, and I freak. I pass out.
Yep. Don't do it.
Just like Ichabod. But go back and watch that scene with headphones on.
And catch that cue. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's just like this really light, woody, violin-y, kind of plucky music.
Interesting.
And it's so like I'm glad I caught it this time because it made that scene. That scene's already great, but now that I realize like the music is way different, it just works. It's I don't really have a lot to say about it.
No, I don't want to go check.
Other than it's just like it's a really interesting thing. If you're listening to this, like it's on Netflix, so like you can load up Sleepy Hollow. Just listen to that on like a good sound system or with headphones, and it's just weird how well it works.
What's blowing my mind right now is like we could do an episode on Mulholland Drive, which is a famously impenetrable movie. That no one knows what it means, and I could explain everything about what the movie means to me. Obviously, it'd be individual, like whatever. Like without breaking a sweat, I could be like, "That is this, and this is doppelganger theme, like whatever." Sleepy Hollow, we keep bringing up things. We're like, we don't know what that means, but like whatever. Like what the hell?
Right? Usually,
like this mainstream like movie.
That's usually
is like
Lynch's reserved parking spot. We're like, we don't know what that means. He just pulls up with a milkshake. We're like, or a cup of coffee.
Right, which is really interesting. That is. Wow. That's really cool.
The other joke I forgot about is before he kills the family, they have that sign that says knock before entering. And there's Like shit like that is so good. And now we're on to the second page of notes. Oh, that's where I noticed the fighting in this. Is
Oh my God,
well.
your book of notes, man. If you had that in your pocket and you got shot, it would protect you.
Yeah, or if I got stabbed in the chest like Ichabod. I wonder what it... Oh, that was the other thing about that scene is I forgot how effortlessly he stabs Ichabod like in the shoulder and then just tosses him like a hamburger on the grill, showing how strong he is. Because he's a great fighter, but I forgot they added that weird supernatural strength.
Yeah, it's
which
incredible.
wouldn't in reality the sword just goes up through his shoulder and then he's just running around screaming. That just the idea of that just makes me hurt. Because
Totally.
right now I actually have neck pain right here, and I'm like, oh,
That's it.
The
joke.
the romance
The romance.
between Johnny Depp and Christina
Yes.
Ricci was pretty good. Like normally,
I think Christina Ricci is the MVP of this movie. Like in terms of, I thought she was incredible. I thought she was believable and fierce and perfectly like suited to be the kind of character where you care about the character, but she also reserves a lot of unpredictability. Right? There's a lot of characters where, like, when you're watching Die Hard, you instantly like John McClane, right? But nothing John McClane does surprises you. Like, he might surprise you that he thinks of something to do. Like, I'll go out I'll bungee out the window and come in 20 floors down or whatever. You're like, you're nuts or whatever. But like, it's the kind of thing he would do. But Christina Ricci's character in this movie, I think there's moments where she says things, or she has a tone when she's saying things, or she's doing things where I'm like, man, she's a little deeper than I thought. Like, her character's deeper than I thought, which is great. I thought she was amazing.
yeah, and like you could almost like what I really liked is thinking about how well they like balance each other out. Like he is more of like the straight and narrow scientific thing, and she's more of the
bent.
sciencey.
Yeah,
more science. Yeah,
he's more straight. She's more bent. Go
Exactly.
figure.
Wow.
Fucking.
Oh my God, this detective movie made us detectives. This is crazy. I only had a few more notes. Oh, the windmill straight out of a Universal film. You know what's funny is there's a lot of flavors of Universal, and then there's a lot of flavors of Hammer film. Like I think a lot of the dream stuff, like when it's just like the red door and the guy looking like this weird preacher walking up. I got really mad Hammer vibes from that, and then the windmill is just like, man, that's fucking Frankenstein. The whole thing catches on fire.
And there's French Connection vibes because there's a full-on car chase in this movie, but it's a coach that blows up. By the way, like, I mean, that's a. I mean, this movie has a lot of tricky things going on in it.
I love this fucking movie. Okay, I only had one more thing. Oh, this is now. Well, I'm towards the ending here, and I don't think I got anything else that popped out. But I loved how the witch called him my unholy horseman.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that's such a cool fucking title.
Yep.
That sounds like the skin you would unlock in a video game. It's just like
You
unlock
or the fan fiction for Sleepy Hollow, like
my unholy horseman. Oh,
I gotta tell you, like, so now obviously, this movie is not,
don't say
Cannibal Holocaust or Evil
Oh.
Dead or whatever. Like, this movie is it's not. It's mainstream-ish, and there is a lot of gore or whatever, but it's also romantic in its own way and whatever. So it's not straight up like propulsive like horror. But here's the thing though. One of the things fascinates me about when you think your way into character situations. Sometimes they're more horrifying than you would expect until you think your way into them, right?
Right.
Which is why that movie, The Endless, was so terrifying to me when that guy was caught in that 1 second time loop, and I'm like, that gave me nightmares for days. So I want to put you in the mind of Miranda Richardson's character as she wakes up in the embrace of the Headless Horseman.
oh man.
So I just want you to imagine being knocked out, right, and waking up and looking up into this sharp, jagged tooth grin of Christopher Walken staring down at you, right, and then getting run into a blood tree.
Well, before that, he lays a fat one on.
Yeah, which is horrifying, right? and the look in his eye is as scary as the kiss, right?
Yeah.
And then he just goes straight into that tree, and just I love like that if you actually have the imagination to think your way into the character situation, now this is a full-on horror movie, right? Because I'm trying to imagine what situation you could wake up into that would be worse than
Because he ain't looking at her angry.
No. In the embrace.
He's looking at her like,
and I don't quite get what Tim Burton, and this is what I'm saying about the plot being a little convoluted, because I don't quite get what happens to her when they go into the tree, because her dead body is clearly there, her dead hand sticking out of it,
Right.
but he didn't bring her into the tree to kill her. Like, that's not
What's funny is some people talk about like how when he's not manifested into his body, like he's in some kind of hell. Right. I always imagine like that's where they went. They went to some kind of hell.
That's what I'm thinking. I think it's a Hellraiser situation inside that tree, right? But you're not in your body. Because her hand's just laying there.
Feels like the soul goes.
Right, you're right. It's your soul, and that's not really explained or like whatever. But like that whole visual and the incredible visual of, and one of the things I really like about the secret. One of the things Hitchcock would do, for example, is he would give you just weird tilted off angles just slightly, or things that were slightly off. And it's subconscious a lot of time. He's not pointing it out, but like you feel uneasy, and it's just because things are a little bit like left to center. They're not right the way they should be or whatever. And one of the things I really like about this movie is that it's set in nature. You got a lot of natural settings. You got a lot of leaves and trees and fogs and weather and, like those kind of things. So, but then you have a lot of things that are really counterintuitive to the brain, right? So, for example, this guy goes pell-mell at a full gallop at a tree. Like, that's suicide. Like, if I was on a horse and I urged that horse to go 30 miles an hour straight into a tree, I'm not coming out.
That's a lot of power.
Right. Right. So like he's doing things that are just counterintuitive to the brain and the eye. So you are unsettled, but you're not quite sure why. Right. And that's because people are doing things that look normal, and then they're doing things that are absolutely abnormal, and they're right up next to each other. Right. Which is, interesting, which is why I like the Sleepy Hollow name so much, right? Because it feels a little dreamlike, but also a little basic. Like a hollow is just a place in the ground where you build a city. Like it's just like a hollow is just like a good place to put a building, right? Like, and then you got the sleepy part of the dream. So you got the dreamy kind of like things don't really make sense, and then you got the hollow like, oh yeah, everything's just it perfectly makes sense. And I just think it's the perfect blend. This movie is the perfect blend of those things.
I remember when we were looking at a house, there was some house in Glendale, and it just reminded me of Disney for some reason. And then right across the street from it was Sleepy Hollow Drive. And I was like, can we just get this place? That'd be really rad. The one other thing I think I want to add, because like that's where you just said was like a great place to end it. And just if you do go back to rewatch it for the close-ups, pause it when Ichabod opens up the doors to the thing. It's a really well done shot, because you get instantly, you have to almost, it's sort of like an I Spy game.
The doors to what?
To the party.
Oh,
when he first when he first shows up in the town, he opens up the doors and everyone's there listening to music, dancing, having a good time. Pause it, because it's almost like an I Spy game. You find our boys club, but they're all scattered throughout the building, but their characteristics shine through the crowd.
I did notice.
So the one guy's like in the chair with his belly and his thing of wine, and then Jeffrey Combs is being a fucking pervert in the back.
Obviously.
But it's just a really, I think, like the attention to detail was
and that's the thing. That's beautiful. One of the things about one of the things that makes Jaws so great is when you put people in that town, and then the town in crisis setting, you get archetypes that you expect, right? Like it, because let's be honest, the archetypes that are in Jaws are just over here in the mist. Right, you have the people who want to open the beach. You got the people who just want to walk out of the market, right, to the parking lot. Everything's fine, right? And you got the people who are like, no, everything's not fine. You got the Richard Dreyfuss character, you're all gonna die, right? And you got that character in the mist. And when you have those situations, especially in like a town kind of community setup that you recognize, right? It even happens in Silent Hill. Anytime you have like a situation where there's a community under stress,
it's really interesting you bring that up, because I love comparing like the town, we'll call them the town's players from Silent Hill to Sleepy Hollow, because what's different about those and Jaws and stuff like that is they live in a world where like they can still go out and have dinner and drive their cars around, but like in those two movies you have to take those same characters and they have to, unlike in Jaws, they have to come to terms with the reality around them, and then you still get to see how those types of people play out, and it's fucking awesome,
right? And it's but you're absolutely right. But that it's legendary when the setting can do a lot of. It's like jewelry, right? Like when the setting does a lot of work, the jewel itself doesn't have to be flawless, right? So like the setting, the town setting is a really interesting way to get it across. That's why when you're watching Clue, you just need like Colonel Mustard and like he's a nerd, and you just need like Professor Plummer, he's a nerd too, or whatever. I forget. I never watched.
I always forget who's.
I never watched Clue, so I don't know. But like
you've never seen it?
No, I've never seen it. But the archetypes are like you get instantly whatever.
Dude,
and what
so
Sleepy
good.
Hollow did was, which is amazing, is for a movie that is based on such an old story and whatever, it was more subtle. Right, like those people, those you could not catch, you could only subconsciously catch what those people were doing when he opens those doors and sees whatever, and it gets across to your subconscious brain, but it's not like on the surface possibly like whatever, but you're still getting that information, which is just great movie making. So,
and I love when you get to hang out with them individually with Ichabod, like when they go to do the operation, you get the one weird guy and he's like, but she's dead. And like you get that flavor of that guy. It's just so well directed.
And by the way, shout out to Miranda Richardson's evil witch dress at the end. That like black webby, like kind of, oh my God.
Well, what's funny is we did our Mars Attack episode, and I actually got some Mars Attack gear from Cavity Colors, and it has his old wife, ex-wife.
Lisa Marie?
Yeah, wasn't that Ichabod's mom?
Yeah, totally.
I saw where they called her his muse.
Yep.
And I was like, he shot her like she was his fucking muse. He shot her so angelic.
Well, she was my favorite. She was my favorite thing in Mars Attacks. Like that scene in Mars Attacks. We have an episode on that, so go listen to that.
It's the most unnerving part.
Yeah, she's like that. Yeah, absolutely. But that's another thing, by the way, that Tim Burton is incredible at is almost dialogueless characters that you feel like you got to know or like really make an impact.
There's three of them in this one. There's young Ichabod. Yep. There's his mother and the horse. And the preacher in there.
Yeah, and even the girl with the twig. Like there's like a lot of stuff going on here where it's amazing filming. If you
that's why I said at the beginning, this is Tim Burton at his mother effing peak.
I still like Batman Returns better, but I'm with you.
Batman Returns is real. Let me climb down that ladder. I'm not saying I dislike Batman Returns.
Well, no, true.
I love him less than let me just say that off the bat. But let us know.
Yes.
Oh, I had a really
go back to Sleepy Hollow and let us know how your visit was.
Yes, go back. Let us know how your visit was, and if it was treat it. You know what? Treat this review like a Yelp review, like you're going to some bed and breakfast at Sleepy Hollow and you're going to review our time. Go back, rewatch it, give us one of those 5. I'm going to encourage a 5-star review. All right, let me be real clear about that. Let my manifestations. Let me tell you something. I'm looking forward to the 5-star reviews about your stay when you go back to Sleepy Hollow.
Indeed.
Oh, this was my favorite review we've done in a long time. I felt like I can't believe we haven't done this yet.
Yeah, I was sure that it was a movie we had covered.
Dude,
already.
I feel so.
But I was so glad we hadn't, because it was if we had, because this was the perfect entrance into this very unusual Halloween season.
That's right.
And the thing is, we're all going to need, as horror fans, we're all going to need ways to cope with how this Halloween season is going to be stranger and possibly way more held back than we're used to, and etc. But like when you get a good Hammer film, or you get something like this, and that atmosphere just oozes out of the screen and gets into your room and gets into your brain, like it doesn't matter. It's as good a feeling as it ever was, and I'm glad it was here for this season, because I needed it more than.
Well, we got to watch it while it was gray outside because of the fire. So that fucking helped. Well, anyways, we'll end on that happy note. Until next time, stay scared, watch a bunch of horror movies. Talk to you next time. Bye.